Patrick Hanlon is a leading branding and marketing strategist best known for his innovative approach to how companies create loyal communities. He is the founder and CEO of Thinktopia, a branding consultancy that has worked with global powerhouses like American Express, PayPal, Microsoft, and Coca-Cola. Hanlon's insights bridge advertising, psychology, and cultural storytelling, making him a respected voice in brand development. His work focuses on the deep human need to belong, and how brands can harness that instinct to create passionate, loyal followers. With Primal Branding, he introduced a framework that has influenced not just businesses, but also political campaigns, social movements, and online communities worldwide. Introduction. Published in 2006, Primal Branding, create zealots for your brand, your company, and your future explores why certain brands inspire fierce loyalty while others struggle to stand out. Hanlon argues that branding goes far beyond logos, slogans, or clever marketing tactics. At its core, successful branding is about building belief systems, stories, rituals, and values that people naturally want to connect with. The central premise is simple but powerful. Great brands function like belief systems, much like religions or social movements. People don't just buy products, they join communities and identities. Hanlon introduces what he calls the Primal Code, a 7-part framework that explains how brands like Apple, Starbucks, and Harley-Davidson create a sense of belonging that turns ordinary customers into devoted advocates. What makes Primal Branding stand out is its blend of psychology, marketing strategy, and cultural anthropology. Instead of treating consumers as passive buyers, Hanlon recognizes them as active participants in a brand's story. This shift in perspective shows why some companies inspire true devotion, while others fade into obscurity. This book is especially relevant for entrepreneurs, marketers, business leaders, and anyone trying to build an audience in today's hyper-competitive world. By breaking down branding into human instincts, belief, community, and shared stories, Hanlon gives us a roadmap for turning ordinary products and services into movements people can rally behind. Chapter 1: The Creation Story. Every belief system begins with an origin story, and brands are no different. In the first chapter of Primal Branding, Patrick Hanlon introduces the idea of the creation story as the foundation of every brand's identity. Just as religions, nations, and movements have origin myths that explain how they came into being, successful brands also share a narrative about where they started, who founded them, and why they exist. Hanlon explains that the creation story is powerful because it humanizes the brand. It provides context, personality, and a sense of authenticity. People don't just want to know what a company sells. They want to understand where it came from and what inspired its journey. For example, Apple's story of two young men, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, building computers in a garage has become legendary. It's not just history, it's part of Apple's identity, shaping the way people perceive the company as bold, innovative, and a little rebellious. The creation story also serves as an anchor for a brand's values and purpose. It answers questions like, why should we care? Why does this company exist at all? Without a compelling origin story, a brand risks feeling hollow or interchangeable. Customers are less likely to form an emotional connection when there's no larger narrative to believe in. Importantly, Hanlon points out that a creation story doesn't have to be dramatic or glamorous. What matters is honesty and meaning. Whether it's a global tech giant, a family-owned restaurant, or a startup run out of a basement, every brand can trace its roots to a moment of inspiration or determination. Sharing that moment gives people something to connect with beyond products and prices. The takeaway from Chapter 1 is clear. To build a strong brand, start with your story. People may buy what you sell, but they'll fall in love with why you started. Chapter 2: The Creed. After establishing the importance of a creation story, Patrick Hanlon moves to the second element of the Primal Code, the creed. If the creation story explains where you came from, the creed defines what you believe in. It's the declaration of purpose, mission, or values that tells the world exactly what a brand stands for. Hanlon emphasizes that people are drawn to belief systems, not products alone. Think of the world's most powerful movements or religions. They rally followers around a clear statement of belief. Brands operate the same way. A creed gives direction, identity, and meaning, transforming a business into something people can align themselves with emotionally. For example, Nike's creed can be summed up as to bring inspiration and innovation to every athlete in the world. Starbucks revolves around creating a third place, between work and home, not just selling coffee. Apple's creed is about challenging the status quo and empowering individuals through technology. These beliefs resonate because they tap into deeper human desires: achievement, belonging, creativity, and self-expression. Hanlon warns that a creed cannot be hollow corporate jargon. Empty mission statements posted on office walls won't inspire anyone. A real creed must be authentic, lived out in actions, and visible in the way a company communicates, hires, and serves its customers. When the creed is genuine, it attracts people who share the same values, building a loyal community of believers. The creed also acts as a filter. Not everyone will agree with your belief system, and that's okay. In fact, it's necessary. A strong creed naturally divides the world into those who resonate with it and those who don't. This division strengthens identity and loyalty among those who do believe. The key lesson from Chapter 2 is this: products may draw attention, but belief creates belonging. If you want people to follow your brand, give them a creed they can believe in and are. Chapter 3: The Icons. After defining the creation story and the creed, Patrick Hanlon introduces the third component of the primal code: icons. These are the visual, auditory, or symbolic elements that instantly represent a brand and trigger recognition. Icons act as shorthand for the entire brand experience. They're the symbols people latch onto and remember. Hanlon explains that icons are far more than logos. While a logo can be an icon, true brand icons extend to sounds, images, packaging, even colors or behaviors. Think of Apple's bitten apple symbol, McDonald's golden arches, or Coca-Cola's red and white script. But icons also include the startup sound of a Windows computer, Harley-Davidson's rumbling engine, or Nike's swoosh paired with the phrase, "Just do it." These symbols don't need explanation, they carry meaning by themselves. The power of icons comes from their ability to evoke emotion and memory. They serve as anchors in people's minds, reinforcing the belief system the brand stands for. For instance, the Starbucks mermaid logo isn't just a picture, it recalls the coffeehouse culture, the third place, philosophy, and the global community Starbucks has cultivated. Hanlon also stresses that creating effective icons requires consistency. A brand's symbols must be repeated, reinforced, and protected over time. Every interaction, whether it's packaging, advertising, or even a store layout, should strengthen those visual and sensory cues. When icons are diluted or changed too frequently, the brand risks losing recognition and trust. What's striking is that icons don't always need to be designed, they can emerge organically. For example, the shape of a Coca-Cola bottle became iconic not because someone forced it, but because it was distinctive and consistently associated with the brand. The key is to recognize these symbols and nurture them. The lesson from Chapter 3 is clear. If you want your brand to stand out in a crowded world, build a set of powerful, recognizable icons. They become the signals people use to identify you, remember you, and ultimately connect emotionally with your brand. Chapter 4: The Rituals. Building on the first three elements of the Primal Code, Patrick Hanlon introduces the fourth: rituals. If the creation story explains your beginnings, the creed defines your beliefs, and the icons give you recognizable symbols, then rituals are the repeated actions that bring your brand to life. Hanlon explains that rituals are the things we do when we interact with a brand. They are the habits, experiences, and traditions that customers come to expect and repeat. In human culture, rituals can be anything from weddings and holidays to daily greetings or prayers. In branding, they serve the same purpose. They create consistency, familiarity, and comfort. Examples are everywhere. Think about the unboxing experience of an Apple product, the sleek packaging, the way the device sits perfectly inside, the satisfying peel of plastic film. That ritual reinforces Apple's promise of design and simplicity. Starbucks customers perform a ritual every time they order a latte in a familiar cup with their name, sometimes misspelled, written on it. Even something as simple as the sound of Netflix's ta-dum when you open the app is part of a ritualized experience. Hanlon emphasizes that rituals don't have to be flashy, they just need to be consistent and meaningful. They can be the way a product is packaged, how service is delivered, or how customers participate in the brand's world. These repeated actions build loyalty because they create comfort and anticipation. Over time, people form emotional attachments not only to the product, but also to the rituals surrounding it. The danger, Hanlon warns, is breaking rituals without care. When brands change core experiences too abruptly, whether it's altering packaging, disrupting service, or removing beloved traditions, they risk alienating their community. People feel as if part of their identity has been lost. The takeaway from Chapter 4 is this: rituals create rhythm and familiarity. They transform everyday interactions into meaningful experiences, helping customers feel like part of something larger than themselves. Brands that design and honor their rituals build lasting loyalty. Chapter 5: The Pagans, or the Nonbelievers. In this chapter, Patrick Hanlon highlights a powerful truth: not everyone is going to love your brand, and that's exactly how it should be. Every belief system has its believers and its skeptics. In the Primal Code, Hanlon calls these outsiders pagans, or nonbelievers. They are the people who reject your creed, ignore your rituals, and dismiss your icons. Far from being a weakness, their presence actually strengthens your brand. Hanlon argues that brands thrive on contrast. By defining what you stand for, you naturally define what you stand against. Nonbelievers provide the backdrop that makes your community of believers stand out even more. Think of Harley-Davidson enthusiasts. They proudly embrace the brand's rugged, rebellious spirit in contrast to people who prefer sleek, quiet bikes. Apple gained strength not only by defining what it was, but also by positioning itself against the boring, corporate world represented by IBM and Microsoft in the 1980s and 1990s. Importantly, nonbelievers can play a role in sharpening your message. Their skepticism forces brands to articulate their values more clearly and defend their identity with conviction. Sometimes, the existence of critics even rallies a brand's community closer together, strengthening loyalty. Consider sports teams. The rivalry between fans isn't just about the game, it's about identity, pride, and belonging. Hanlon cautions that trying to appeal to everyone is a mistake. In doing so, brands water down their creed, weaken their rituals, and lose their sense of authenticity. True strength comes from clarity, saying, "This is who we are, and we know it's not for everyone." That honesty creates deeper trust with the people who do believe. The lesson from Chapter 5 is simple but counterintuitive: embrace your nonbelievers. They define the edges of your identity and make your believers feel even more connected to your brand. Without them, your brand risks blending into the background noise of the marketplace. Chapter 6: The Sacred Words. Patrick Hanlon introduces the sixth element of the Primal Code: sacred words. Just as religions, subcultures, and communities have their own vocabulary, successful brands develop a unique language that strengthens belonging among believers and sets them apart from outsiders. Sacred words are the phrases, jargon, and terminology that become a kind of secret handshake for the community. They create an insider versus outsider distinction. Those who know the language feel like they belong, while those who don't are left out. This insider language builds identity, loyalty, and culture around the brand. Think about Starbucks. Ordering a tall grande or venti isn't just about cup size, it's about participating in the Starbucks culture. Apple popularized terms like iPod, Genius Bar, and later, App Store. Google gave us verbs like to Google. These sacred words stick in our minds and reinforce the brand's uniqueness. Hanlon notes that sacred words don't always need to be invented, they can also emerge from the community itself. Fans of Harley-Davidson proudly talk about Hogs. CrossFitters speak their own shorthand with terms like WOD, workout of the day. These phrases become powerful symbols of belonging. The flip side is that sacred words also draw boundaries. Outsiders may not understand them, and that's part of the appeal. The language creates exclusivity, and people naturally want to become insiders. Learning and adopting sacred words becomes part of the ritual of joining the community. Hanlon warns, however, that sacred words must be authentic and consistent. Forced jargon or buzzwords that don't resonate with the community won't stick. The most effective sacred words feel natural, rooted in the brand's story and culture. The key lesson from Chapter 6 is this: language is power. Sacred words transform ordinary communication into a cultural marker. If you want your brand to feel like a tribe, give your followers words and phrases they can proudly use to signal, "I'm one of us." Chapter 7: The Leader. The final element of the Primal Code is the leader. Patrick Hanlon explains that every belief system needs a central figure, or at least a symbol of authority, that embodies the brand's values and guides the community. In religions, leaders are prophets, founders, or spiritual figures. In brands, leaders are often the founders, visionaries, or personalities that people look to for inspiration and direction. Hanlon points to iconic examples. Steve Jobs wasn't just Apple's CEO, he was the face of its mission to think different. His black turtleneck and product launch keynotes became as recognizable as Apple's logo. Richard Branson embodies Virgin's adventurous, risk-taking spirit. Oprah Winfrey is not just a media personality but a leader who has built an entire brand empire on empowerment and authenticity. Leaders give brands a human voice. They provide clarity in times of uncertainty and keep the creed alive. Hanlon argues that people are more likely to believe in people than in faceless corporations. A strong leader helps a brand feel approachable, trustworthy, and real. Interestingly, Hanlon notes that the leader doesn't always need to be a single individual. In some cases, the role is fulfilled by a group or by the community itself. For example, Harley-Davidson's leadership extends beyond executives to the Harley Owners Group, HOG, where the riders themselves carry the brand's values forward. Similarly, open-source software communities often thrive under shared leadership rather than a single figure. But leadership comes with risks. If a leader strays from the creed or damages their credibility, the brand can suffer. Missteps at the top often ripple throughout the entire community. That's why alignment between the leader's actions and the brand's values is critical. The lesson from Chapter 7 is this: brands need leaders, whether iconic individuals or communities, to embody their beliefs and keep their followers inspired. Without leadership, belief systems lose focus and momentum. Chapter 8: Primal Brands. Now that Patrick Hanlon has outlined the 7 elements of the Primal Code, Chapter 8 demonstrates how these pieces come together in real-world examples. Hanlon calls these fully formed, deeply resonant businesses primal brands, brands that have successfully woven the creation story, creed, icons, rituals, nonbelievers, sacred words, and leadership into a cohesive belief system. Hanlon explains that primal brands aren't just companies with good marketing, they are movements. They capture the hearts and minds of people by creating something larger than a product. They create belonging. When all 7 elements work in harmony, a brand achieves what he calls primal power, the ability to inspire loyalty, attract advocates, and spark cultural influence. Examples abound. Apple, once a small challenger in the computer industry, became a cultural phenomenon by uniting its origin story, Jobs and Wozniak in a garage, its creed, think different, its iconic products and design language, its rituals of product launches and unboxings, its sacred words like iPod and Genius Bar, and of course, Steve Jobs as the charismatic leader. The result? A community of believers who see themselves as part of Apple's mission, not just buyers of devices. Harley-Davidson provides another case study. The Harley story is one of rebellion and freedom. Its creed centers around the open road and self-expression. Its icons include the Harley logo, the sound of its engines, and the black leather jacket. Rituals include long rides, rallies, and club meetups. Sacred words like HOG deepen the insider culture, and the riders themselves often become the leaders. The result is a primal tribe, bound together by identity and belief. Hanlon's point is clear. When brands stop thinking of themselves as sellers of goods and instead as creators of communities, they transcend the marketplace. They stop competing on price or features and start building belief systems people will defend, promote, and cherish. The lesson of Chapter 8 is that primal brands thrive because they speak to something deeply human: the need for connection, meaning, and belonging. Chapter 9: The Primal Method. In this chapter, Patrick Hanlon shifts from theory to practice, showing how businesses can apply the primal code step by step. He introduces the Primal Method, a framework for analyzing and strengthening a brand by checking whether all 7 elements are present and working together. Hanlon explains that many companies have some elements of the code, perhaps a creation story or a set of icons, but very few have all of them. The Primal Method acts like a diagnostic tool. By mapping out which elements are strong, weak, or missing, brands can see where they need to focus their energy. For instance, a company may have great icons and rituals but lack a clear creed. Without a creed, people don't know what the brand really stands for, making it harder to build a loyal community. Another brand might have a compelling leader and sacred words but lack recognizable rituals, leaving the experience flat. The Primal Method helps identify these gaps. Hanlon also stresses that the method is not just for large corporations. Startups, nonprofits, and even personal brands can use it. The key is to think of your brand as a belief system and ask, do we have a story people can believe in? Do we have symbols and words that make people feel like insiders? Do we have rituals that reinforce belonging? By approaching branding this way, companies stop competing on surface-level marketing tactics and instead build deeper emotional connections. The Primal Method encourages leaders to look beyond advertising campaigns and focus on the timeless, human forces that drive loyalty. The lesson from Chapter 9 is this: branding isn't about clever slogans or trendy ads, it's about creating a complete belief system. The Primal Method gives organizations a roadmap for diagnosing their brand and transforming it into something people truly believe in. Chapter 10: Primal Applications. In Chapter 10, Patrick Hanlon explores how the primal code can be applied across different industries, proving that these principles are not limited to consumer products. Whether you're building a global corporation, a nonprofit, or even a personal brand, the same 7 elements shape how people connect and believe. Hanlon shows that the code works just as well for politicians, musicians, and social movements as it does for companies. Political campaigns, for example, rely heavily on a creation story, the candidate's background, a creed, their political vision, icons, party symbols, slogans, campaign logos, rituals, rallies, debates, voting, nonbelievers, the opposition, sacred words. Yes, we can make America great again. And leaders, the candidates themselves. These campaigns don't just sell policies, they build belief systems that mobilize millions. The same is true in entertainment. Rock bands have origin stories, unique sounds and visuals, loyal rituals like concerts, and sacred words fans instantly recognize. Sports teams are another example, where rituals, games, chants, traditions, and nonbelievers, rival teams, are central to the experience. Even charities and causes use the primal code by creating strong creeds and rallying communities around shared missions. Hanlon emphasizes that when applied correctly, the code transforms how organizations communicate. It shifts focus from short-term marketing campaigns to building long-term loyalty. Advertising becomes less about persuasion and more about reinforcing belief. The most successful brands don't chase customers, they build tribes that attract followers naturally. The key lesson from Chapter 10 is this: the primal code isn't limited to business. It's a universal framework that explains how humans create connection and meaning in nearly every area of life. Chapter 11: Primal Marketing. In Chapter 11, Patrick Hanlon explains how the Primal Code reshapes marketing. Traditional marketing often focuses on surface-level tactics, advertising, promotions, and media buys. But primal marketing is about building belief systems that naturally attract followers. Instead of shouting louder than the competition, it's about creating meaning that resonates deeply with people. Hanlon argues that many brands waste money because they lack a coherent belief structure. Without a clear creation story, creed, rituals, and other elements, their marketing feels hollow and forgettable. By contrast, brands that embrace the Primal Code don't just market products, they share values, stories, and experiences that people want to be part of. He illustrates this with examples. Nike doesn't sell sneakers through ads alone, it sells the belief that everyone is an athlete. Apple doesn't just advertise devices, it reinforces a culture of creativity and rebellion against the ordinary. These brands use every campaign to strengthen the 7 elements, ensuring their message is consistent and emotionally powerful. Primal marketing also redefines the role of the consumer. Instead of being passive targets of advertising, consumers become participants in the brand's story. They share content, use sacred words, and repeat rituals, effectively becoming marketers themselves. Word of mouth and community-driven promotion become more powerful than traditional ads. Hanlon emphasizes that marketers should focus less on chasing attention and more on nurturing belief. When people feel part of something bigger, they willingly spread the message. Marketing shifts from being a cost center to becoming a cultural force. The key takeaway from Chapter 11 is this: great marketing isn't about selling harder, it's about building belief stronger. Brands that align every campaign with the Primal Code create loyal communities that market for them, authentically, passionately. Chapter 12, Primal Future. In Chapter 12, Patrick Hanlon looks ahead to how the Primal Code will shape the future of branding and marketing. He argues that the marketplace is becoming increasingly fragmented, noisy, and competitive. Traditional advertising methods are losing effectiveness as consumers tune out and demand authenticity. In this environment, the brands that thrive will be those that build belief systems, not just products. Hanlon highlights the rise of digital platforms and social media as proof of this shift. Communities now form online around shared values, stories, and rituals. Fans don't just consume, they participate, create content, and spread messages. The most successful brands of the future will understand this dynamic and cultivate tribes of believers who amplify their creed and icons across networks. He also notes that globalization and technology are erasing old boundaries. Brands are no longer confined to local markets. They compete and influence worldwide. This makes the need for authentic belief systems even more critical, as they provide a universal language of trust and belonging that transcends borders. At the same time, Hanlon warns that brands must be careful. In an era of transparency, any misalignment between creed and actions will be quickly exposed. Leaders must embody their values consistently, and rituals must feel genuine rather than staged. Future consumers will expect not only strong brands but also ethical, authentic ones. The key lesson from Chapter 12 is that the Primal Code isn't just a theory of branding's past or present, it's a roadmap for the future. As markets evolve, the human need for connection and belief will remain constant. Brands that understand and nurture these primal forces will not just survive change, they'll shape culture and lead it. Chapter 13, The Primal Challenge. In the final chapter, Patrick Hanlon brings the ideas of primal branding together with a challenge to businesses, leaders, and creators. If you want to build lasting brands, you must embrace the Primal Code fully and authentically. Hanlon stresses that the biggest obstacle is not knowing what to do, it's having the courage to commit. Many organizations understand the importance of storytelling, values, and culture, but they stop short of living them consistently. Brands that succeed are those that align every action, decision, and message with their creation story, creed, icons, rituals, nonbelievers, sacred words, and leadership. He reminds us that the stakes are higher than ever. In a world where consumers are bombarded with choices, People don't just buy products, they join communities. They want meaning, connection, and identity. If your brand doesn't provide that, someone else's will. The challenge is to stop thinking of branding as decoration and start thinking of it as belief. Hanlon also points out that embracing the primal code requires vulnerability. Not everyone will believe in your creed. Not everyone will adopt your rituals or use your sacred words. And that's fine, because real strength comes from clarity. The goal isn't to be liked by everyone but to be loved fiercely by your believers. The chapter closes with a call to action. Build your brand as if you're building a movement. Whether you're leading a global corporation, a startup, or a personal project, the Primal Code offers a timeless blueprint. The challenge is whether you're willing to commit to it, live it, and invite others to believe in it alongside you. The key takeaway from Chapter 13 is this: branding isn't just strategy, it's identity, culture, and belief. The challenge is to build not just customers, but communities.